Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I have the privilege to discuss a few compliance in Africa in a nutshell, a few curveballs within the compliance environment, and then also what are the benefits of choosing PaySpace for payroll compliance. Now, firstly, we're going to have a look at compliance in Africa as well as the dangers of non-compliance. Now, Africa is not for sissies. It's a phrase that is often used by businesses who operate in various regions of the continent. Now, Africa is made up of many different countries, each with its own culture, as well as rules and regulations that present both challenges and also opportunities. Now, Africa is made up of 54 countries. In total, we've got 1.4 billion people. That is now as of 2021. It is the second largest, as well as the second most populated continent after Asia, and it accounts for about 18% of the world's human population. Now at PaySpace, we have 44 countries in our footprint. 43 countries is in Africa at the moment and one country in the Middle East. Now to operate in so many countries across Africa does come with a few complexities. There's one thing you can definitely be sure of. The only constant is change. Now the reason for the complexity is the frequent changes in legislation as well as the regulations, which results in the greatest payroll challenge, and that is to stay compliant. Now, if I have a look at the compliance statutory updates that occurred during the last 3 months, throughout our footprint in Africa, there were annual legislative updates in 11 of the countries that we operate in. There was 5 new statutory reports that was introduced in Africa that we need to implement on the payroll. 38 of our existing statutory reports that is across Africa has changes on that we need to amend on the system. Within the last 3 months, the compliance team released in total 166 development tasks. Now, what is the dangers of non-compliance? Now, there's a wise person that once said, if you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. Now, while most of you might know the importance of staying up to date with new and changing legislations and regulations, there's a lot of people that find it nearly impossible to do. Now, with the frequent changes in legislation, as well as the complexities around regulations, many companies may be non-compliant and have given a little thought about the repercussions. In order to avoid non-compliance, it is absolutely critical to keep up to date with your legislation. And that is because compliance can really result in, firstly, hefty fines and sanctions, but it can also result in more damaging consequences, such as criminal charges, reputational damage, as well as the loss of opportunities. Now, within compliance, I promise you, there is never a dull moment, and we regularly need to deal with some curveballs in the industry. Now, one of them is the continual changes in regulations and legislation, including your Go Green policies that is enforced by the governments. It causes rapid and complex software development to combat non-compliance. Another curveball that we are often faced with is late promulgations, which includes your backdate of effective dates, causing abnormally tight deadlines, software challenges where we need to implement retroactive recalculation, and it also causes a heavy administration burden for our users. Let's use Mauritius as an example. In Mauritius, there were statutory changes that were promulgated in August with an effective date of July. One of the changes for Mauritius was an increased travel exemption with a monthly calculation that we had to backdate to July. In order to perform a monthly tax calculation within a cumulative tax method, you need to ensure that you do the correct tax calculation. And that brings me to my next point. When we roll out these statutory changes, careful consideration needs to be given around the payroll pay dates that might impact the changes that it might impact on our users. We need to take into account whether the employees have paid their employees yet, whether the payrolls are closed off, and whether the statutory reports have been submitted. Another challenge that we are often faced with within compliance is when certain revenue authorities decide to release mid-tax year updates during the middle of the year, causing quite a lot of reconciliation issues. Let's use Zimbabwe as an example. For this tax year specifically, we've got two separate tax tables that we need to apply in Zimbabwe. The first tax table we need to apply from January to July, and we've got a second tax table that should be applied from August to December for your local currency. Another curveball that is quite common within the compliance industry is that the majority of our countries in Africa have tax years that run from January to December, causing that most of the critical annual legislative updates that occurs during the year happens when it's a holiday season, when most of the authorities, your advisory houses, all of them operate on skeleton staff. To get responses on interpretations, on legislation, on promulgation during that time is quite challenging. And then last but not least, what I would like to mention as part of curveballs that we often are faced with is scenarios where there are multiple interpretations in the legislation and tax administration. In scenarios like that, where the country allows for various interpretations of the legislation, flexibility on your payroll is absolutely key to ensure that you accommodate for the various interpretations. Let's look at Ghana as an example. In Ghana, we've got a SNIT calculation. One of the interpretations states that the cap should be applied over all 3 tiers. And then there's also a different interpretation that states that the cap should only apply to tier 1. Both of them are allowed in the country. Okay, the next item that we're going to focus on is we're going to look at cloud payroll technology, specifically focusing on the advantages of choosing PaySpace for payroll compliance. Now, our customers need to have the peace of mind that many of the challenges that they have and that they are faced with are taken care of. Now, this could range from accurately interpreting local legislation changes, or it can be by releasing statutory updates on time for the submission periods. Now, with cloud payroll technology, it automates your mundane, repetitive tasks, and it improves compliance accuracy, our efficiency, as well as statutory reporting. The importance of what your cloud software offers should really not be underestimated. Payroll managers need to take note of the long-term trends that are beginning to develop in the digital era that we live in to help businesses to adapt and also to stay relevant. Now, businesses that use payroll systems that are not in the cloud struggle a lot with these constant changes that we are faced with in compliance. An effective payroll compliance strategy starts with the best tools, and that is PaySpace. Now, the days of legacy software, manual sheets, reporting after the fact are over. Companies simply must have the access to the information they need in real time to pinpoint the impact and have the ability to make decisions quickly. Now, with your cloud software, your business will always enjoy the latest and greatest version that is up to date with legislative changes to enable our businesses to adapt and scale to its specific needs. Now, when statutory changes are made, our customers can simply log onto their PaySpace account and they will see the updated legislative changes. We deploy statutory changes frequently to ensure that our customers have the latest statutory or legislative updates available. Now, apart from our frequent deployments, we also have certain statutory calculations, for example, your tax tables, your tax rates, certain limits that we've got or ceiling values that we've got on the payroll that we can make available into production instantaneously without the dependency on the next deployment to production. The PaySpace system is designed in such a way that statutory elements with a high velocity of change can be updated on a bureau level without the need for code changes that needs to be deployed into production. Now, within our team, there's certain processes that we follow. Today, I'm just going to focus on the processes that we follow within the research team, specifically looking at our research methodology as well as our 5-tier advisory approach. Now, our compliance research team can basically be seen as PaySpace internal tax advisors. They're responsible for the formulation of theoretical tax application. We conceptualize and communicate tax. Now, we've got very strategic relationships with multiple tax providers to ensure that we've get the best solution and that we are legislatively compliant in all the countries that we operate in. We have also formed and nurtured a very strong relationship or alliance with the PAYE, with SITE and SAPA to inform us of any current or upcoming changes in South Africa-based tax legislation, and that is where the majority of our customer base is. We also add comments and suggestions to the draft bills and also to the EasyFile software. We add our suggestions and comments to be taken into consideration for any future amendments. Now, within our research team, we follow a pivotal 5-tier advisory approach. And our tiers is basically based on the complexity of the query as well as the magnitude of the query. Now let's quickly have a look at the tiers that we apply. The first tier that we've got is internal compliance, and that is our research team, where our research analysts will deploy research methodologies by conducting independent investigations and confirming legislative interpretations with our in-country governing bodies, as well as our tax advisors. Our team will verify the sources of information and cross-reference that against the legislation. Our second tier is our PaySpace customers. Now, as Sandra has mentioned earlier this morning, we started user group collaboration drive where we obtain invaluable tax updates and in-country best practices through our collaboration sessions with our customers, our business partners, as well as audit firms. Now, the third tier that we've got is our tax authorities and governing bodies, where we communicate with in-country tax and revenue authorities, also governing bodies such as your national funds, your social securities, training authorities, as well as the compensation commissioner. Our fourth tier is our regional advisory firms that will provide us with advisory services for certain clusters of countries. And fifth, but not least, we've got our in-country partners, with business partners that assist us with real statutory change alerts in obtaining a practical in-country application of the law. Okay, last but not least, I would like to share with you how the compliance team communicates legislative matters to our customer base using different channels within the business. The first one I would like to go through is the infographics. Now, we've got infographics that is available on our website, which is basically a summarized overview of the most significant tax legislation that is administered by the Revenue Authority. Now, let me quickly show you an example of the infographics that we've got available. This is an example of the Eswatini infographic that you can view from the website. It's a 5-page document, just a summary of the important statutory rate for Eswatini, focusing on employment income, your statutory contributions, your allowable deductions, tax rates, rebates, as well as graded tax. Apart from our infographics, we also have compliance product user guides available on the system. Now, that is a guide to aid our users in the understanding as well as the application of legislative compliance. It is basically a practical guide that our customers can use during implementation, maintenance of payrolls, and also to troubleshoot support queries. In order to view the product user guides, from the dashboard on your system, you can go to your profile icon. From there, you can navigate to How Can We Help? Under How Can We Help, under the PaySpace Wisdom section, you'll be able to find the Product Compliance Product User Guides. Let me quickly show you an example of a compliance product user guide that we've updated recently, and that is the Product User Guide of Namibia. So the one for Namibia is a 17-page document which is focusing on the legislative changes, legislative information, specifically focusing on Namibia, where we go through all the different parts in the system where there is Namibia-specific fields. Yeah, so that is just an example from a product user guide that we've got available for Namibia on the system. The next one that I would like to mention is our compliance news feed. Now, the compliance news feed is a communication tool that we use where we can give updates to our customers. So it might be that we've got legislative changes that's only proposed, but it's not been promulgated yet. But we want our users or our customers to be aware of it. In certain instances, we sit in scenarios where we're still waiting for advisors to clarify certain information that we want our customers to take note that we are busy working on. In other instances, there are certain changes that doesn't result in system changes, but we want our customers to be aware of, for example, a rate that remained the same or an interest rate that didn't change. So it doesn't result in system changes, but it is important that our customers know that for the next quarter, the rate didn't change. Now, in order to know where to go to get the compliance news feed that we share, on the system, you're going to navigate to your profile icon, and from your profile icon, you're going to click on How Can We Help? Under How Can We Help, under your PaySpace Wisdom section, there is a section for compliance news. And that is where we will write articles in terms of proposed changes or any information that we would like to share with our customers. The next thing that I would like to mention is the release notes and the preliminary release notes that the compliance team is responsible for. In order to find the release notes, you're going to click on What's New. Under What's New, you will be able to see the prelim notes as well as the release notes specifically for the legislative changes. So I'm going to click on the Legislative Changes tab. Under the Legislative Changes tab, let's first quickly have a look at the preliminary release notes. Now here you will find all the changes that we are planning to release soon. So as soon as a task goes into development and we know we're going to release it within the next week or two or upcoming weeks, we will write the release notes for the upcoming changes. Let's quickly have a look at an example. So we are busy working on employment equity, and there's a few changes that we are going to roll out on the system. If you would like to know what are the changes we are planning to work on, you can just click on employment equity, the EA4 detail report, and from there you'll be able to see the changes that we're going to implement, the impact that the changes will have, and then if necessary, we'll add the legislation as well. As soon as we've released the changes and our team has tested the changes in production, we will activate the release notes and ensure that the release notes will move over to the release notes section. So under your legislative changes tab, under release notes, you'll be able to find all the changes that we've released the weekend. Like I've mentioned, on a Monday, we test in production, and when everyone is happy that the changes is correct in production, we'll activate it and ensure that by close of business on a Monday, the release notes are activated for our customers to view. Let's look at one of the changes that we've released last weekend was with regards to overtime for Mauritius, where we'll give background on why we've made certain changes, as well as the PaySpace impact to our customers. Apart from that, we also have tax alerts that we distribute to our customers. Now, tax alerts is an email that we send out to all our customers who've opted to receive communication from PaySpace. So the emails will only go out when there's new legislative changes that has been promulgated or there's new law that came into effect. Then we'll release a tax alert. Apart from the tax alert, we will also update the preliminary release notes as well as the release notes to ensure that all our communication is on the system as well. If we release a significant change on the system, we will also arrange live sessions with our customers as well as our business partners to go with them through the legislation as well as the changes or the configuration that is required on the system. If I can use Mauritius as an example, in the beginning, in June, we've rolled out a cumulative tax method for Mauritius, which is quite a big change with a lot of migration that had to happen. So we decided to have a session with all our customers where we could explain the reason, give the background, give the legislation, explain the system changes, and give customers an opportunity to ask questions if they're unsure about something. And then last but not least, we also make use of compliance pop-up messages. Now, pop-up messages is where we'll add a message to the system if there is a specific information we want our customers to be aware of in terms of a legislative matter on a specific country. So whenever you go onto the system and you see a pop-up message that starts with message from compliance, please make sure that you read through the message and take note of what we've mentioned in that message. Most of our communication or pop-up messages that we'll distribute will be targeted per country, and we'll only add the pop-up messages if it's very important information that we want all our customers to please read. Okay, thank you very much for your time, everyone. I hope the session was helpful and that you are confident to trust PaySpace with your compliance matters.